Oh, we have someone.
Oh,
Hi.
hello.
Sorry, I was trying to join through the link in the email, but I couldn't.
Uh-oh.
And then I had to go to the website. I don't know if other people are experiencing the same.
Well, thanks for your persistence. Yeah, we've had that happen before where sometimes the links don't get updated in every place. I was just about to get started and we were going to record this regardless of whether anybody showed up, but maybe I'll wait another minute or two and see if okay. Well, the recording's going, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. And what we will do is post this recording so that anybody who missed this, who is interested, can go back and see the recording. So today we're here to talk about the, sorry, where's our solicitation? We're here to talk about the NASA EPSCoR Basic Research NOFO opportunity. So I'm going to briefly, as I can, sort of walk through where to find the details of the solicitation, talk about some of the key points on the solicitation, and take any questions that are here, and then make sure to emphasize at the end our contact information if there are questions that arise afterwards, or anybody who's watching a recording of this has questions. I always like to start by bringing up our website in case anybody hasn't been there before. If you just Google Nevada NASA programs, it's usually the top hit, at least on my browser when I do that. And the program we're talking about today, you can find under funding opportunities. And then if you scroll down a little bit under current opportunities for faculty, the very top one there should be this Nevada NASA EPSCoR request for letters of intent and pre-proposals for the basic research opportunity. And then all you have to do is click the button here and it'll take you to the page with all of the details. If you look down, you can find a link here in blue that says solicitation. That's the actual solicitation document, our solicitation for letters of intent and pre-proposals. So that's the main thing we're going to talk about. So I'm just going to go straight to that document. So if you click that link, it should download this PDF document. And a key thing about our solicitations is we tend to have a lot of supporting documents, and we like to use this attachment feature in PDF files, which isn't a commonly used feature, but so you want to be sure to download the full document and open it up in Acrobat or the Acrobat Reader, and you should be able to click the little paperclip icon and see these attached supporting documents, and I'll refer to those as we go along in this presentation. So I'll make this a little bit wider. So here's the cover page. Again, this is the basic research opportunity. NOFO, we are requesting letters of intent by August 12th and pre-proposals submitted by August 26th. The rules, as you'll see a little bit further down as we go through the rules require that you submit a letter of intent if you want to submit a pre-proposal. And the letters of intent are really important because we use those to line up peer reviewers, which is a critical element of this. So I'll get into the details of that in a moment. And then here are the details about this meeting. So if you go to the introduction here, it talks about the the Basic Research Opportunity NOFO. This is a federal funding research opportunity, and the purpose is to fund research projects that build capacity for NASA-related research within the jurisdiction, in this case, within the state of Nevada. As I just said, it says here the letters of intent are required if you want to submit a pre-proposal, and the purpose of that is to establish peer reviewers. I do get the pre-proposals peer reviewed, and the key element here is that each EPSCoR state is only allowed to submit one proposal each year to this program, and so that's why we have to solicit the pre-proposals and do a peer review selection of those pre-proposals, because we generally get, I would say, between 5 to 7 pre-proposals every year for this opportunity, and we have to do a down selection to only one. The full proposal, so that one winner of that pre-proposal selection then works with us to develop, and their team to develop a full proposal that gets submitted to NASA. And that deadline for that full proposal is going to be in mid-January. We don't know the exact date because the federal solicitation has not come out yet, but they have confirmed that it will be similar to the date last year. So last year, the deadline was January 22nd, 2024. So somewhere around January 20th to 25th, 2025, I expect the deadline will be this year. And so in order for the team to develop a full proposal that is competitive, we need to start this selection process through the pre-proposals early. That's why we're doing this now in August. Let me skip down to the objectives here, and then I'll skip back up to the collaboration requirements. The objectives of the NASA EPSCoR Research Basic Research NOFO, here it's called the Research Collaboration NOFO. We need to change that. And I apologize for those who have known this program by a number of names. We used to refer to this as the NASA CAN, then the NASA NOFO, then the Research Collaboration NOFO. Now it's the Basic Research NOFO. NASA keeps changing the name. Hopefully it'll be consistent at some point. The purpose, which is shown in the bullet points that you can see in the middle of the screen here, is to contribute to and promote the development of research infrastructure in Nevada for research in strategic areas of importance to NASA's missions and NASA's centers. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. To improve the capabilities for EPSCoR states, in this case Nevada, to gain support directly from NASA. So part of the goal here is to fund teams that will down the road be submitting full proposals to NASA through their federal funding opportunities to grow research funding from NASA and other space-related agencies in Nevada. Contribute to the overall research infrastructure for science and technology capabilities in the state of Nevada, and to work with us to improve the environment for science, mathematics, engineering, and technology, that is STEM education in the state. And so although this program is EPSCoR, we do have the parallel NASA Space Grant Program, which is more about STEM education. And we like to have the EPSCoR researchers and the EPSCoR students engage with the space grant students and space grant funded faculty as well, as part of a process of sort of building a community of NASA related researchers in the state. Let me scroll back up where it's underlined here. Each funded NASA EPSCoR Basic Research Opportunity NOFO proposal is expected to establish collaborative research activities with a NASA center scientist or a NASA center contractor. So it has been our experience that when research projects have a direct connection to a NASA researcher, they have a higher probability of funding and a higher rate of success in terms of the outcomes of the project. And that also supports our goal within our NASA EPSCoR program to grow connections between researchers within the state of Nevada with researchers at NASA centers. And if there are questions about that, or you need help establishing a connection, feel free to reach out to us. That is something that I can help with. And we can go through a networking exercise to try to help find a good collaborator. And I want to be clear that it doesn't necessarily have to be a NASA civil servant or a NASA program manager or a mission manager. It just, what we're really looking for is a connection with somebody who is part of the sort of internal NASA community. So usually that's somebody who works at a NASA center. It might be a NASA civil servant, but it could also be a NASA contractor. The majority of people who work at NASA centers are NASA contractors. If you have collaborators at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, those are all contractors because there are no civil servants at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, just as an example. So certainly it's perfectly fine to have a NASA contractor be your partner. But really the goal is to demonstrate that there's some connection between the research team in Nevada and a NASA center or a scientist or a technologist at a NASA center, so that we can sort of build more concrete connections between Nevada and NASA. And again, if you have concerns about that element, reach out to me and I can help you with that. The other underlined and bold element here is important to note also that we expect that these projects be a collaboration between multiple NSHE institutions. This is just an attempt on our end to make sure that these projects benefit multiple NSHE institutions. And so we asked that that 3 NSHE institutions be involved in the collaboration. Often that is the 3 research institutions, that is UNR, UNLV, and DRI, but it doesn't have to be. You could involve as one of the collaborating NSHE institutions one of the colleges. Generally that would, since the colleges don't have as robust a research program, it could be a mechanism to engage students at the community college in some research opportunities or research experiences. That would be a perfectly valid way to engage a college collaborator. This is just a way of conveying that you may feel free to be creative about how you explore those collaborations. They don't have to be just the 3 research institutions. Again, if there are further questions about that, we're happy to discuss that. Let me go further down. Eligibility. Faculty at NSHE institutions are eligible to submit letters of intent and pre-proposals to this competition. We particularly encourage junior faculty, early career faculty, female faculty, and faculty who are members of other underrepresented groups in STEM to apply. You will need to identify lead collaborators at each of the other 2 NSHE institutions, but generally we identify 1 PI at the lead institution, and then co-investigators who are the leads at the other 2 institutions. Funding, this is the important part. The funding for this, we anticipate, we haven't seen the final solicitation from NASA yet, but we presume that the parameters will remain the same as they were last year for the most part. $750,000 in federal funds from NASA and $125,000, no, sorry, $375,000 in matching funds from the state of Nevada for a total project funding of $1.125 million over 3 years. That's the way these programs generally get funded. And those matching funds generally come from the special projects match account that the NSHE EPSCoR office manages on behalf of NSHE and the state legislature. Well, we'll get into the budget details a little bit later. Award obligations, there is some reporting involved. You should know that the way this program works, the actual PI on the proposal that gets submitted to NASA is me, and that's a requirement of the program. So I serve as kind of a figurehead PI of these projects, but I don't really engage in the technical leadership of the project really in any way, unless it's necessary or requested, which it usually isn't. So I don't generally interfere with the progression of the project, but I do generally work with the PI and the leads at each of the institutions if necessary on the reporting, because the reports get submitted in my name. So you will, if you're the PI of the project that gets funded, you will interact with me on the reporting. There are generally annual reports that are due before it's usually 60 days before the annual renewal date, each of the 3 years of the project. And then the third year, we don't do the annual report 60 days prior. Instead, we do a final report that's usually 120 days after the end date of the project. It's not uncommon for these to get a 1-year no-cost extension. So we will submit an annual report 60 days before the end of the project if we're going to go ahead and submit and request a no-cost extension. That's sort of technicality we can worry about down the road. And we have a specific template that we use for the reports. So we ask that you develop a narrative about the report, but we also ask for some very, very specific data, names, and institutions and contact information for students and NASA collaborators, external collaborators, a listing of publications that come from the project or other products that may come, intellectual property, patents, if that's relevant, anything that the project produces. We have a list of tables that we ask the PIs gather information as part of that reporting process. So here's the details. As I said, a letter of intent is required if you are interested in this program, due August 12th at 5 p.m. It is not onerous at all. It lists here in Part D of the solicitation what we ask for. So we want the name of the lead PI and their institution, as well as the names and institutions of the co-PIs, so we know which 3 NSHE institutions are collaborating. A working title for the proposal doesn't have to be the final title. If you decide to change it down the road, that's okay. Some listing of keywords, an abstract of no more than 300 words, just a brief description of the project. And this is critical. Suggested external reviewers. It says here minimum of 2 names and email addresses. I really do appreciate having more than 2. In fact, now that I'm thinking about it, down in future years, I may increase that. These are external reviewers. They don't have to be, they have to be external to your team. We like to follow the usual conflict of interest rules that agencies like NSF follow. So don't give me the name of close collaborators that you are funded on. Don't give me names of people that you recently published papers with. Don't give me names of your former students, or if you're an early career and you recently worked with your PhD advisor or your postdoc advisor, don't give me their names. What I need are names of experts in the broader community who are experts in the topic that your pre-proposal is about. And they don't have to be people in Nevada. They could be people in Nevada, but they don't have to be. Often the reviewers for our pre-proposals are folks that are external to Nevada. Really what we're looking for are experts in the topic. If you have an existing relationship with some NASA scientists, you don't want to give me the name of the NASA collaborator that you're including in your research team. But if you have names of other NASA collaborators or other NASA experts who you interact with, who are experts in the field, those would be great. Again, the purpose of this is for me to send each pre-proposal out to at least one disciplinary expert in the field of that topic to get a disciplinary review. So I'll be following the names that you give me are people that I will be reaching out to, asking if they will be willing to review your pre-proposal. And it's very difficult for me to convince people to do that. That's why we need the more names, the better that you can provide. And that's it. And let me just, since I was just talking about the peer review, let me fill in the rest of the details of that. In addition to the technical review from an expert in your field, I also will solicit 1 or 2 comparative reviews. So I will find myself a reviewer who might be in Nevada or might be external to Nevada to read through all of the pre-proposals and give me a comparative review of all of the pre-proposals. And then based on those reviews that I get back, I will complete the down selection to the one team that will be invited to submit a full proposal. What gets reviewed is not your letter of intent. Your letter of intent is for me to gauge how many pre-proposals to expect and to get the names of potential reviewers so I can start reaching out to reviewers to line up the peer review. What will be reviewed is the pre-proposal. So here are the requirements of the pre-proposal. There's a cover page that is included in the attached documents to this this solicitation. So here I have the attachments open on the side. You'll see the second item here listed, cover page, EPSCoR basic research, fillable. It's a fillable PDF file where you put names and your name and institution and the title of the project and the name of your sponsored projects office representative and some other information. That is the cover page. The key part that gets reviewed is the project description, which is limited to 5 pages. And then there are some supporting documents after that that can go beyond the 5-page limit. But within that 5-page limit, we ask for items, let's see, A and B here. So we ask for a summary of the project, which is one of the 5 pages. So that might be a slightly expanded version of your abstract. Again, that's limited to 1 page. The remaining 4 pages should include the items listed here in items 1 to 6. Project goals and research objectives of the project, the tasks and methods of the project, what we call SMART objectives, which is just a way of asking you to make sure that the objectives and goals of your project are measurable, quantifiable, testable. I think there's some details on that further down in the solicitation. But if you Google SMART goals, you'll find a discussion of that. Let's see, it does say we paperclip that, although I'm not sure that I see that there. So maybe that's something that we missed. We used to have a document that outlined what SMART goals are. But again, the purpose of that, if we find that we can add that, is for you to propose measurable, testable, and quantifiable goals to your project. In addition to the goals, we want an approximate timetable for the project. So we've asked for tasks and methods. Give us some timeline of when you expect those tasks and methods to be performed and completed. A list of collaborators who will contribute. So that may be, certainly will be the other two campus leads, your NASA collaborator, but you can have other collaborators as well. And a brief discussion of likely outcomes. So what do you expect to be the outcome? Usually it's publications, but it might also be patents, licensable technology, hardware or software. And if there's a STEM component, it might be newer revised courses, or other STEM education-related outcomes. But certainly this is a research NOFO, so we certainly expect there will be research outcomes such as publications, patents, or technology. And then also think about also mentioning proposals. So if you, a particular goal of this program is that you will be submitting proposals down the road to federal research programs within NASA or other agencies. So if you foresee that your project, as it pertains to a certain NASA mission, that there's a funding opportunity or funding program within that mission, please mention that as well. That will strengthen your pre-proposal. So those items make up the 5-page limit. We want you to also include a plan for inclusion of students or postdoctoral fellows as part of the research team. There's another 1-page maximum for a plan for student and postdoctoral engagement. And also a description of how the effort will contribute to the state of Nevada's economic development plan and the NASA EPSCoR goals, which I'll talk about in just a moment. You might also reference the NSHE Science and Technology Plan. Those items are all included in the attachments here. So where it says GOED statewide plan here, that's the Governor's Office of Economic Development Plan. We ask that you sort of look through there, see if you can connect your project to goals of the statewide plan. Also, the NSHE Science and Technology Plan is this item that's at the bottom of the list here. We ask that you look through that document and try to connect your project to the goals that are stated in that Science and Technology Plan. Let me talk specifically about the NASA's solicitation goals. That's what's referenced here, NASA EPSCoR Basic Research Opportunity NOFO Appendix A. Included in the attachments here is last year's solicitation, federal solicitation for this program at NASA. It is not this year's. This year's solicitation has not been released yet. But we include last year's so that you can get an idea of what it looks like. I have it open here, so I'm going to open that document here. In fact, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. This is what the solicitation will look like. Again, this says fiscal year 2024. The one that the one team will be submitting a proposal to will say fiscal year 2025. But we anticipate that it will be fairly similar. And one of the things that we are asking you to respond to is, so here's the contents. You can see, talks about the award, the funding, the program description includes their expression of the goals of the program, some eligibility and budget requirements. There are other things that are required for the full proposal, like a data management plan and other things, which we don't require you to include in the pre-proposal. The key thing that I want to draw your attention to are the appendices, and particularly Appendix A. And if you click here, it'll take you straight there. Appendix A includes a long list of topics and priorities for NASA's missions. And NASA's missions are organized under mission directorates. So you'll see all the mission directorates listed here. Here's the Aeronautics Research Mission Directorate, for example, Space Operations, Exploration Systems Development Mission Directorate. Many of our, there's Space Operations Mission Directorate and some subtopics under there in human spaceflight. Many of our respondents are interested in the Science Mission Directorate. If you're interested in Earth or space science, this would probably be where you'd fit. So this goes on for pages and pages and pages. And what we ask that you do in your pre-proposal, I'm going to switch back to the other document. Under this item D, in this one-page max, in addition to the state goals, we ask that you articulate how your project relates to the NASA Mission Directorate goals in that Appendix A in that solicitation. And that is something that the Federal NOFO asks you to respond to if you are the team that gets to submit a full proposal to NASA. They ask that you articulate in your proposal your connection to those mission directorate goals. So we ask that you include that in this one-page discussion in your pre-proposal. And then the final element is that we ask that you include your NASA collaborators and provide letters of support, a letter of support from one or more NASA collaborators. And we ask that, just to clarify this point, none of the funding from this program is allowed to go to a NASA center. So your NASA collaborator, you won't be able to fund your NASA collaborator. And that is a limitation. So we don't necessarily expect that your NASA collaborator will be providing lots and lots of technical contributions to the project. But the goal is for them to help you be connected to NASA. So it would be nice if the letter of support said that they will engage with the team, stay abreast of what the outcomes are of the project, and as appropriate, will help the team get connected maybe to other colleagues at NASA who may be able to help the project be successful. That's the kind of thing that we're looking for the letter to say. We do require in the pre-proposal, and this is an onerous obligation, we understand, but at this time it's a required element that you include a budget. There is a budget template in the attachments to the pre-proposal solicitation. You have to fill this budget template out and have it signed by the sponsored project people at each of the 3 NSHE institutions that are collaborating in the project. So please get started on your budget early. Reach out to your collaborators at the other NSHE institutions. Make sure they're aware that they're going to have to develop a budget and get it signed by their institutions. And if there are questions about the budget, be sure to bring those to our attention early in the process as you can, so we can help you address those budget questions. Appendices, these references, you can include as many references as you want. That doesn't contribute to any page limit. Biographical sketches or CVs from each of the key individuals, limited to 2 pages per person. In particular, we want CVs from the lead PI and the co-PIs from the 2 other NSHE institutions. anybody who's having a major role in the project, we want a CV from. A letter of support from the NASA collaborators I mentioned. NASA funding history for the science PI. So for the lead PI of the project, please, if you have a history of past either NASA federal funding or NASA EPSCoR funding through the federal programs or state of Nevada programs, please provide us a list of those. And then any facilities or other resources at the NSHE institutions that you intend to use, or if your NASA collaborator is going to be offering up the use of some facilities at NASA, this would be a good place to list that. Again, we can't use EPSCoR funds to pay for that. So if you're planning on using a federal facility for testing, which has happened in the past, make sure that you check ahead of time that they can make that available without costing the project. Again, if there are specific questions about that, we can discuss them. The letters of intent are due by 5 p.m. On August 12th. There is a link to submit that letter of intent. It's a fillable form on our website to submit that letter of intent. Same with the pre-proposal. The pre-proposal is due by 5 p.m. on August 26th. Our deadlines are always firm in order to keep our programs fair. We always hold firm to our deadlines, and we don't generally accept submissions that come in after the deadline. There are some specific requirements here in terms of having it as a PDF document, and we ask that you follow a naming convention for your file. And then there is a link to submit the pre-proposal, which will ask you it has some fillable fields, and then we'll ask you to upload your PDF pre-proposal file. Here's just some further details on the pre-proposal process and evaluation, which I mentioned earlier. I won't reiterate this, but I will be getting the pre-proposals externally reviewed, both from technical experts in the field and from comparative review. And that raises a recommendation that be sure that your pre-proposal is understandable to a broad cross-section of your research colleagues. So the comparative review that I will get will come from one or two experts. We try to find an expert who has prior experience with EPSCoR programs, but I cannot guarantee that that person will be expert in all of the topics that we will get pre-proposals on. In fact, I'm almost certain that they will not be an expert in some of the topics. And in fact, they may not even be an expert in any of the topics of the pre-proposals that we receive, because I'm asking them to do a comparative review of all of the pre-proposals. So that makes it imperative that when you write your pre-proposal that you don't use a lot of highly disciplinary language or highly disciplinary jargon. Make sure that your pre-proposal, while comprehensive, is understandable to scientists broadly in STEM topics or in topics that NASA scientists or NASA-related experts will be expert in. That is it. At the bottom is our contact information for myself and for Carol Luna, who is our research administrator, who's also on the call here. And I should have had them introduce themselves, but included here are Carol Luna, who is our research administrator. Generally, budget questions will be deferred to her if I don't know the answer. And then also on the line here is Darlene Aranda, who is our research coordinator, who is also available for help with sorting out technical issues if we run into them. And then there are some additional links here to the NASA centers if you're looking for additional resources to understand what NASA priorities are. With that, I'm going to stop sharing and open it up to any questions. We don't have a big group here today. But David, if you have any questions.
So I wanted to introduce myself a tiny bit. I am an associate professor in biology at UNR, and I do bioinformatics and comparative genomics. And I don't think I'm going to be submitting in this cycle, but I wanted to attend this meeting to see if I could help other people with their contribute to their proposals. And also for the future, I wanted to ask, because I work mostly on evolution, I compare the genomes of different living things to learn about evolution. And I would like to ask you if you think something like focusing, for instance, on the origin of eukaryotes 2 billion years ago, that could be of interest for NASA, for this kind of proposal, or for other proposals. My knowledge about NASA funding is very limited. So would that be, do you think there's room for something like that, or it has to be more like closer to the origin of life?
Great question. And I am not a biologist or a genomicist, but we have had a number of EPSCoR projects funded in the past that are related to topics in biology and genomics, and even origin of life. Often those projects are have related to biology of organisms in extreme environments, and the context there would be understanding the potential for life on other planets or other bodies. We've also had projects funded that are a little bit more practically oriented towards planetary protection. So how do we protect other planets from contamination by Earth species when we land spacecraft on other planets, or potentially the other way around, or if we're trying to send say like a sample return mission, how do we make sure that when we gather a sample from a planet elsewhere that we're not contaminating our sample with biological material from Earth and confusing our results. So we have had a number of projects funded in the past along those lines. Mm-hmm. More broadly oriented on origin of life issues, I can't say that I know for sure. I wouldn't say that it is not within NASA's interests. What I would suggest is you can look through that Appendix A and that basic research solicitation, and look through any of the language there related to biological programs. Mm-hmm. Or if you want offline, I'm happy to, if you want to have a further conversation, I'm happy to put you in touch with some of our researchers in Nevada who have been funded through NASA EPSCoR programs in the past on biological related projects.
I would love that. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to follow up with you after this meeting on that, and you can ask them. They would have more expertise. There's at least one or two that I'm thinking of, colleagues who've done work who would know better than I the answer to your question.
Thank you.
Okay. If you are watching the recording and you have a question, please don't hesitate to reach out. My contact information is in the solicitation, and we're happy to take questions, and we're happy to receive everyone's letter of intent by August 12th. Carol or Darlene, did I forget anything?
No, I think I think it was fine. I think you're on mute, Carol. Sorry.
Sorry. I'm Carol, and I just wanted to highlight section D6 of the FY24 NASA solicitation, just because that's the funding restrictions. So those are important to just be familiar with, of the things that you have to be mindful of when developing your budget. That was it.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Go ahead, Darlene.
Oh, I was just going to ask if you wanted me to stop the recording. Or...
Yeah, at this point, let's go ahead and stop the recording, and we'll post that for those who weren't able to attend. Okay.